Let's start with the issue at hand, okay? Why is it so tough for Muslims specifically to get married? Is it difficult for non-Muslims to get married in America or in the West in particular? Would you say yes or no? Raise your hand if you think it's tough even for non-Muslims to be getting married. So about half. Who thinks it's easy for non-Muslims to get married? Okay. Relative to Muslims? Okay, you're saying no, so I'm not talking about relative to Muslims. In general. In general. So now we redo the vote real quick. How many think in general it's tough for people to get married in America today compared to what it was 50 years ago or compared to other parts of the world? Who think it's tougher for people to get married? Okay, so few more hands. Okay, so if that's the case with the average person in America, what percentage of the American population are Muslims? 1%. 1%. Right? So if the other 99% of the population is having problems getting married, this 1% is also being affected and we're having trouble and difficulty getting married. But the difference is that when a Muslim is looking to marry someone, right, those people generally are not interested in necessarily marrying someone from a specific religion, maybe different cultures or whatever it is. So there's kind of more openness. Maybe 80% of the population, 60% of the population is okay, like they would consider. What happens is if a Muslim wants to marry a Muslim, they've just lost 99% of the entire population, assuming that they want to marry someone who grew up in America if they grew up in America. So if they want to marry an American Muslim, and they're an American Muslim, and they're living in America or Canada or England, wherever it is, and they want to marry someone from that same place, 99% of all logically potential candidates have been excluded. And now they're down to that 1%. And from that 1%, they have a specific type of religious practice that they have. Their understanding of what they're looking for in their mate, in their partner. And that's obviously going to eliminate things even further. So this is one part of the problem. One part of the problem is the supply. I know this is a little crude term here. The supply or we'll just say the supply and demand, right? The supply of people who are actual potentials, right? The supply of potential marriage candidates. Okay? This is one problem. This is just statistics. Very simple. This is the reality in which we're living in. So people say, why is it so tough for Muslims to get married? It's because the supply got cut by 99% of the population. That's problem number one. So it's obviously going to be more difficult. It's the same thing. It's like 99% of restaurants are not zabiha, meat. So yeah, is it difficult? Is it tougher to find, zabiha meat when you're going out to eat at a restaurant? Yes, because 99% of restaurants don't supply zabiha meat. So it's more difficult to go if you're only eating zabiha, for example, and you wanted to only eat that type of meat. It's going to be a lot harder for you to find that meat if you want to eat at regular places. The same thing happens when it comes to marriage partners. Okay, so that's problem number one. Problem number two, okay, is, I'm just using straight up terms, okay? People are overly picky in what they're looking for. Like overly picky. And how many of you would agree that people today are pickier than they were 50 years ago in terms of what they're looking for? Pickier than 20 years ago in terms of what they're looking for? Yes, most people would agree, okay? So that's point number two, okay? And then point number three is we have a problem with a lack of matchmakers. Okay? Lack of. So who used to be the matchmakers in the past? Community auntie or friends, religious leaders. Who else? In the past, historically, 100 years ago, parents, right? Parents. So what ends up happening is that you got parents, you got random aunties and uncles who like hook people up and stuff like that, and then you got other people in the community. But generally, parents and extended family would somehow find other people. So in traditional societies, it's not difficult for them to get married. They don't have the same type of challenge in terms of finding people per se. It tends to be easier because of their connections and because the family participates in that entire process, right? Assuming that not every family is super picky in that environment. Okay, so that becomes a problem. So matchmakers get replaced today with what? Internet. Yes, internet. So you got shadi.com, you've got muslimmatch.com, you've got nasib.com, you've got huh? Have you been to all of them? Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. You got halfardeen.com. Now you have beyondchai.com. You got everything from all over the place, right? So you've got a ton of these internet services. And what happens is when you talk to people who are doing all these internet services, they're saying, it's not working for me. Okay? Why is it not working for me? What is the problem with many of these internet services? One of the biggest complaints is what? Visa, right? So you get a ton of international inquiries when they find out that you're an American citizen, and they'll be like, wow, this is great. This person is really interested in potential. I'm not saying everyone, okay? But you get a ton of inquiries from abroad. And the fear is, and it's a legitimate fear, that these people may only be marrying you because they want the American green card. And then you're going to have challenges and you're going to have issues. So your inbox or whatever, your messaging service gets bombarded with all of these people. And you're like, where are the Americans? Where are the people who maybe, Canadians or something like that? So these are some of the things that I'm witnessing. So I'm just going to start off the discussion with this. And now you can feel free to disagree. You can feel free to say, you know what, that's not true. I'm not married, but I'm not picky at all. You're free to say that. You're free to say, no, that's not the case. There are some awesome matchmakers or family or whatever it is. So let's start this discussion. Most people would agree that it's tougher for Muslims to get married than non-Muslims. Would anyone disagree? Would like to discuss that point? Yes.
I have a comment. I think you can't make the comparison just like that for one reason.
Okay.
What's the definition of married? To me, intimacy is married. It's married. If people are living together for 10 years and didn't have that paperwork, they are married. Even though under the statistics they aren't. So so when we talk about Muslims don't have intimate relationships outside of that paperwork.
So we're defining marriage as legal marriage.
Right, you are. Exactly.
But so does the country. So the thing is, most people who live together even for 10 years and they're intimate and everything, a lot of them have a concept of marriage at the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
But for Muslims it's different.
Mm-hmm.
For Muslims, for non-Muslims, when they live together, there are people who believe that it's not important. So they are, in my opinion, they are actually kind of married.
I agree with you. I agree with you in that sense, but they're the minority. So that's why we're focusing on that. Statistics show that they're still the minority. Yeah. In terms of cohabitation, people who live together and they have cohabitation agreements and all of that, they're still the minority in America. So they're still a small group. They exist and they're prevalent, no doubt, but they're still considered a minority. So until marriage becomes like less than 50% of people believe eventually someday when you hit 50 you should get married, then we'll change that. So we're assuming that the general conception of marriage, whether it happens before or after intimacy, we're just assuming that. So that's just, we'll take that as a given for now. Okay? Anyone disagree on any of on this point? In terms of, it's more difficult. Okay, so we agree on the difficult part. How many of you know at least 5 people who've tried to get married and they've been trying very hard and it took them over 3 years to get married, or they've not gotten married, it's been 3 years? Anyone? How many know someone over 5 years they've been trying to get married and it's difficult and they can't get married? And you can count yourself if you want. Okay? All right. So there's a lot of people. Okay, I'll tell you my own personal story. So when I hit 20, I was ready. You know, I wanted to get married, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. Put myself in the search engines and searching and all of that stuff, and it took me to like, you know, age 26 before I could get married. And this is, you know, over 10 years ago. So it's gotten worse. The situation has actually gotten worse. So the question is, why did that happen? What was going on? So I have my ideas too, which I'm going to share with you soon. But why is this happening? Okay, I just threw a few points out there. What other points do you have? What other points do you want to share? Why do you think this is happening? What is the problem? And then once we identify the problem, we'll talk about what we can do about it. Yes?
So I have 2 that come to mind. One is culture.
Culture.
Certain people who won't go for other races.
Okay, I'm going to put that under picky. All right. No, I'm not saying it's not valid. Picky doesn't mean in a negative sense, right?
No, I understand, but I'm saying it's also sometimes parents.
Okay, so
I don't know if it should go
we should put a separate category. So basically,
with families.
How about cultural baggage?
I was going to put like force something, like imposed, forced standards? No. Criteria, there we go. Forced criteria. Okay, so let's build on that. So what's the issue with that? What's the problem? Is it basically the person who wants to get married is going to purposely delay because they don't want to abide by the criteria that's being forced on them?
Or, I mean, you're saying 1%, if you're just talking about Muslim or 1%.
Mm.
If you want to marry someone who is from Lahore, Pakistan, then you made that to a point someplace like that.
Okay, yeah. So among the criteria from back home, basically.
Well, no, like, just like the background of the family has to come with it.
Right. Yeah, meaning like back home, it could be like restricting. So in terms of like a village or a particular city or something like that. Because the only reason that would happen is because the parents want you to marry from that specific region, right? Okay, good. What was your second point?
Okay, so the second one I think is, you were talking about 50 years ago versus now.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys might criticize me for this, but I think the women in our generation are now more independent, feeling the need to marry for financial or other reasons.
Mm-hmm.
It might go back to being picky. We don't need to have that mentality.
Yep. No, that's good. Woman independent. Sorry. I had like a 3-hour seminar before this. Okay. So women are more independent. Yes, definitely. And the thing is, what about the men? What about the men 50 years ago? Have the men also changed, or is just mainly the women? What has changed about the men?
The men, excuse me if there's mothers here, aren't being raised to want to be married.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
I have sons, they're married.
What does that mean? They're not being raised.
They're spoiled.
Okay, spoiled men, basically.
Sorry, guys. It's getting hot over there.
Spoiled men. Okay, so that's the problem. So they
They want to cook and a clean and a bottle washer.
okay, so they want a mother, basically.
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
That ain't nothing about
Okay. All right. Good. Spoiled men want a mother. All right. And women are independent in the sense that they don't need finance. Okay. Good. Very good. What else? Yes.
I think it's an important point you're missing for both men and women.
Yeah.
Individuals who've been married before sometimes have some psychological psychological baggage that needs to be addressed. Both men and women. Many women or even men
Yeah.
will have one bad experience. I think that everybody speaks for that experience.
Right.
There's actually not much to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that goes for,
So they'll generalize their bad experience.
I think that goes for non-married people either.
Yeah, so especially if their parents didn't have.
Psychological baggage here. Right. Psychological baggage. Family problems could be one really big thing, and friend problems. So the more that people listen, or the more that people have friends that have a lot of problems, they will also look at that and be like, if all men are like this, or all women are like this, then forget it, man. If that's what marriage is going to be like, then they're less interested in that. Yes.
Education, I can speak of education.
What type of education?
Not having the right education.
Like marital education? Oh, just having
Maybe
technical
they don't have
education.
bachelors, maybe they don't have
Ah, okay.
high school, these type of.
So it's difficult even for people to get married because they don't have degrees. Okay, so not having degrees. I'm gonna put also money, degrees / money / I guess we'll put culture in a separate one. You're not in the same culture.
And also, as my friend said, goes both ways. Maybe too much education.
Not having degrees / money lined up. Okay, basically what I mean by that, lined up with the other person. So basically, someone's got a master's degree. They don't want to marry someone who has an AA degree because they feel like they're not at the same level. Same thing with money. Someone has a certain social class or a certain amount of money, and they say, no, I'm not going to marry someone who doesn't fit in the same category. Yes, that is a problem and makes it difficult. Yes.
There's those concert people are seeing multiple people at the same time.
They're seeing multiple people?
Yeah.
Uh,
People at the same time.
for the potential, as a potential marriage opportunity?
But yeah.
Okay.
You see like 3-4 people at the same time.
Okay.
You drop somebody, and it's like, that's what goes on. People are seeing multiple people. They're not willing to commit, yeah. Not committed.
What do you mean you mean they're meeting people for the potential marriage candidates at the same time? So the issue is that they don't want to commit because of that?
Well, like, let's say like there's a girl like that, they'll talk to like 3-4 people at the same time for a couple of months. They
Right.
obviously can't marry all 3 people. And
Correct.
then they'll have one person, what about the 2 other people who have been talking to them? Now they waste 6 months of their time.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
And that's a problem because they're talking to multiple people.
Mm.
They drop you, and then like you don't even know what happened.
Mm.
Because there's so many options.
Mm.
So you should talk. If you talk to one person, you can go, but if you talk to 6 different people, you get confused, and that's where there's a lot of.
So let's take the flip side of that. Let's say you're only able to talk to one person at one time and it ends up going for 3 months or 6 months, and then you decide it doesn't work out. And you have to restart the process.
You asked the wrong questions.
Hmm?
That person asked the wrong questions.
Or you ask the wrong questions, or you just delayed it out unnecessarily, or without thinking about, what's going to happen is, would that potentially cause the same issue of making it more difficult to get married because you're not able to talk to more than one person, or because you're stretching out your amount of time that you need to think about things?
Well, see, some people don't have the time to talk to multiple people, and sometimes it's just confusing, right?
Right.
It depends, yeah.
That's why Beyond Chai was made, by the way. Just letting you know, okay? So,
I think it can be a problem, maybe it's an advantage, some problem for some people.
right, so it can be a problem or it can be an advantage for other people.
You're talking to one
Okay, so let's put it as
discussion, I don't know.
extended what do you call the pre-marriage process, but it's not engagement? Courtship interview. Yeah, we'll call it should we call it courtship or interview? Courtship. All right. All right. Extended courtship times. All right. They get. How long have you seen them go?
6 months, a year.
Yeah, 6 to 12 months. Okay. All right. And the let me just throw something out here. The biggest problem with this is when people end up getting emotionally attached during this time. It's very detrimental. And what they'll end up doing is, even if they see red flags, they will ignore all the red flags because they're emotionally attached. And that's part of what leads into the high divorce rate, unfortunately. So, good. Extended courtship. What else? Yes.
I feel like when you're younger, you have this idea that you have more time to wait. So maybe you might meet someone that fits a lot of your criteria or someone you like, but you'll just wait because you feel like you have the time. Maybe something better will come along. You want to see what else is out there.
Right. Okay. So, reason for the delay is because you wait for Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, right? And you're hoping that they're going to come along and they have absolutely every single thing that you want, even though you probably don't have everything that they want, right? That's what people, that's human nature, yes.
I think a lot of this falls under the lack of emotional intelligence, not knowing the self. And, even that would drag the courtship timing too, that they're trying to figure out what it is that they want. But if they know themselves well, if they are emotionally intelligent, then the filter system should be pretty strong.
So we'll put lack of maturity, right? Lack of maturity in terms of marriage specifically, right? And that's a really big issue. And that's where the pickiness kind of comes into play, the negative part of the pickiness, okay? So when people don't know what they want, and people don't know what they should want, and people don't know what they should expect, then their criteria is going to be all over the place, right? And that becomes a major issue. Okay, very good. Should we continue? Let's continue, yes.
I think there's also a situation where there's Muslim men marrying non-Muslim women, marrying, Jews and Christians, and that further
Narrows the, yeah, okay. So,
But does it really, do you really want to be with somebody who doesn't want to be with you? I don't know if that really narrows things down.
marrying non-Muslims. What do you mean? No, I think what she means is that the pool from the 1% gets more reduced when men are marrying non-Muslim women, and then there's less potential people.
Aren't they already eliminated if they're not interested in marrying a Muslim anyways?
True. They are technically eliminated anyways, yeah.
I've seen them,
Yeah.
but then they marry these women,
Mm.
and then the women become Muslim, which is great.
Uh-huh.
But some of them don't, and then I feel like the men sort of have a little bit of an advantage because Islamically they are not restricted to only marrying Muslim women.
Okay,
They
so,
can marry women of the book, which is the Jewish women and the Christian women.
right. Even though by the way, it's disliked in Islam. It's considered makruh, just to clarify. Yeah, some scholars say it's forbidden. Other scholars say it's makruh, unless Islam is the predominant religion in that area. Just so you know, just want to clarify that point. Okay. Yeah, but her point is that if they already get married, then they're not potential anyways for people who are looking for someone. So they automatically got eliminated from the potential marriage candidates anyways, which is a good point. But your point still valid in terms of potential. Yes.
So I'm personally not on internet sites because I'm afraid of the potential to commodify human beings swiping left and right. And
Yeah. Okay.
But and also fear for being pickier, I guess. And then that also shrinks the supply in your head. I think it expands the supply in your head because you think that there's a bigger pool than there really is. But my issue, I guess, is finding paths of intersection if you're not on the internet.
Okay, so if you're not on the internet, yeah. So what are the options, right? Okay, so we'll talk about that in a moment. We'll get right back to that. Well, there's a really interesting political cartoon someone made. It was basically, there was a princess, and she is talking to this frog, and there's a caption that says, "You don't look like your profile picture." So again, internet also has its major problems when it comes to what people really are in real life. Okay, good.
I think one of the biggest problem would be like the level of faith and practicing faith.
Yeah.
And because that would play in all of these things. Right? And because of that, we are unable to come across people that are at the same level as us, or we are being judged as something that we're not.
Okay, so would you say that people who are more committed Muslims or more practicing Muslims, would you say that they're the minority of the 1% or the majority or about half of the 1%?
Which ones?
The practicing Muslims, like who fully practice, where would you say out of the 1% of Muslims that are there in America, are they the majority, are they the minority, or are they like 50-50 kind of?
About like moderate Muslims or like very religious?
I'm asking about people who, let's just say people who pray 5 times a day. Okay? So people who pray 5 times a day, out of the 1% of Muslims in America, would you say most pray 5 times a day? Most don't pray 5 times a day, or it's like 50-50 approximately in the middle, kind of somewhere?
50-50.
Oh, you weren't going to
Most
say.
are Eid Muslims.
Okay. Huh?
Most are Eid only Muslims, I think.
Okay, you think most are Eid only Muslims? Minority? Okay, so then if it's the minority, which it is statistically, then what ends up happening is that, what's the word? Practicing, committed, I don't know. Let's say 5 prayer Muslims are minority. Okay? So what ends up happening, potentially we can explore this, is that since they're a minority and they're looking for someone who falls in the same category, their pool gets shrunk a lot more than other people who may, for example, have no issue with drinking alcohol. They may have no issue with doing other things. They still identify as Muslim, but their pool gets shrunk a lot more. Okay, so that's a good point. So let's take Southern California. Out of Southern California, let's just look at people who attend Friday prayer. Okay, as an example, the people who attend Friday prayer. Does anyone know what the estimates are for the amount of Muslims in Southern California versus the percentage that actually attend a Friday prayer, and the estimate for that? Is it 90% of Muslims in Southern California attend Friday prayer? 50% of Muslims in California attend Friday prayer? 10% of Muslims attend Friday prayer? 10%. Malik. It's about 10%. Okay? 10%. So 10% of the people who should be praying, basically, Friday prayer. So 10% attend from the Muslim population, whoever, actually counting men and women both. So 10%. So what ends up happening is now the 10% who want to get married, most likely, let's assume that they don't want to marry among the 90% because they don't even attend Friday prayer. So what ends up happening, or ever, basically, they really don't attend. So what ends up happening is now their pool gets shrunk to 10%. So now they are looking for those specific 10%. So it becomes more challenging. So the pool goes smaller and smaller. Okay? So that's an important thing. And then when we talk about solutions, we're going to talk about how do you incorporate that into the internet services, into the anti-matchmaking services, and into all of the other things. How do you actually ask for religiosity in terms of your level of religiosity if you're searching for something like that, right? And how do you do that? And to what extent do you do that? And to what extent do you measure or weigh what people are interested in? So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit when we get there. Let's continue with some problems. Yes.
So I just wanted to extend on the religiosity one, because what I hear from a few of my friends is, it's kind of, no offense, but kind of what you then
Mm.
there's the middle part where it's like, okay, maybe you don't do Friday the prayers, but you're not.
But the Friday prayer, so,
Or
the,
Friday, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
it's kind of a gray zone, like, just because you don't do one doesn't mean you're okay with the other.
right, right, right.
And I guess I'm just saying that's the problem,
No.
sometimes it's hard to match that.
So that's the thing. So how do we define religiosity, right? And how do we cater to people who are looking at different levels of religiosity, right? So that's what I wanted to talk about, is when you have an internet service or you have a matchmaking service, how do you specify what type of religiosity you're looking for, right? And that's important. It's a good point you brought up. And what happens is most people are looking for someone more religious, less religious, or equally religious to them. What would you say?
Equal.
So people are different, but usually they're looking for equal or more. And which one is more difficult? It's more difficult to find the one that's more. Because if the other person's looking for more, then you're gone. You've automatically been eliminated, right? So that becomes a challenge, right? So that's and this is part of the problem when it comes to either psychological baggage or when it comes to the different types of being picky and the maturity. What ends up happening is a lot of people are looking for marriage as being a solution to their, where'd the mommy thing go? Yeah, just looking for a solution to what the problem is in their life. So the guys who are spoiled, they're looking for someone to, handle everything so they can enjoy their childlike life, for example. And for other people, they're either looking, maybe if they're looking for finance, they're looking for that as a solution, or they're looking for, someone to motivate them and help them become better Muslims, or whatever else thing that they're looking for. Some people are trying to just live a very comfortable lifestyle and, all sorts of things. So good. These are all good points. What else? Yes.
The lack of venues for people to meet. I understand you have the aunties and
Yes. Yes.
the lack of venues in California, so there's not enough venues for people to meet. I think that's what's affecting this.
Venues. Okay, so let's take a look at the venues. Okay, so we have, what are the venues that exist for people to meet today? Currently? College?
But that cuts out a certain population. That's only certain.
That'll cut off a very significant population. ISNA, yeah, so ISNA has a marriage service. How many people end up going to ISNA marriage thing per year? No, not just have you been. How many people go there per year? Who has seen? Yeah, you heard. Like, how many people show up? Like in? No, not to the conference, to the marriage part. Yeah. It's 500. 500. Okay. Has anyone heard positive reviews about the ISNA service? Has anyone heard negative reviews about what happens in the ISNA? Yes. Let's have a quick 30-second review of ISNA, please.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Of course.
Bismillah.
So I was the only white person in the entire building, and I had this dude sit in front of me who was like 19. He goes, "Sorry, I'm not interested." And I was like, "Oh my god, this is so horrible."
Yes.
It was
That's,
the worst experience ever.
yeah, worst experience ever. Okay, review number 1. Review number 2. Anyone else got a review of the ISNA conference? The reviews that I've heard is, okay, go ahead.
I think it was very civil.
Uh,
I mean, obviously, it's random, so some people might like each other, some people might not.
Mm.
Christina. But it doesn't mean that it was a poorly done or in poor taste in any way. I think it was very respectfully done.
Okay, respectfully done. Are the people not clicking? Is there too many different cultures and too many different things going on?
I think in our cultures, whether you're Arabi or you're Pakistani or you're Indian, you're always told to, don't talk to boys, don't talk to girls. And sometimes it becomes awkward for the women to talk or a man to talk to a woman. It could be out of respect, it could be out of not knowing anything, or it could be out of preparation.
So 3 out of 5 star review, 4 out of 5 stars.
I like it.
4 out of 5. Okay, that's a pretty good review. Okay, alhamdulillah. Yes.
So usually the matrimonial event happens over the course of 2 days. So one of the events, I attended the second day, and that day the receptionists they were telling every woman that this time around, since it's a speed dating type of thing, the women will have to move with their purses and bags and everything, and we were discussing that usually the men move, so why are you making women move this time around? They were like, oh, there was an incident yesterday. And what was the incident? The incident was that there were men skipping women.
They were oh, you're supposed to go in line, and they just skipped them.
Yeah, they're just like, they would not even sit for those 3 minutes.
Oh.
So it comes down to etiquette of how can you not be kind to me for 3 minutes.
Okay,
So
that's...
what happened, what really upset me that, so you're basically accommodating men like that. Women the next day, oh, go ahead and, women should
Okay,
move around
so,
to men.
okay, that was unfair accommodation for men over the women doing that thing. Okay, so 1 out of 5 stars. Yeah, okay. So I've also got other reviews from people, like there's a bunch of parents that are standing outside and they're basically kicking their children to go inside and figure out a way to get married, and they're not interested in getting married, and that feeds back into another issue. So we got 2 issues. We got the issue of these are people who want to get married, but they can't get married. There's another problem of people who don't want to get married, and they're simply not interested in marriage at all until maybe they hit like 35 or 30 or something like that. So that's a different issue, but that's what I've heard. It happens over there as well. Other feedback? Feedback.
Well, I just wanted to point out both of your comments, because that actually is a bigger problem. So for you saying, yeah, or I think Hassan Minaj said it, that you're raised to not talk to the opposite gender, and then suddenly, boom, why are you not marrying? And I think there is a lack of charisma and chemistry and talking to somebody.
Do you think that the majority of attendees, I'm asking a question, do you think the majority of attendees at ISNA were raised to not talk to the opposite gender?
So I haven't been, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just saying what I hear from people.
Okay. So I want to ask people who've been there. Oh no, what do you think?
I have, they're not. The vast majority of them are extremely liberal and will admit to drinking, clubbing, and all kinds of stuff.
Okay, so she says no, they admit to, and ISNA has that reputation for the club ISNA portion. If you guys heard of that, right? So yeah, so I mean, generally, the people who attend ISNA, at least, they're not like ultra conservative. They're not being raised, not talking to opposite gender. So I don't think that's really the issue here, at least not in a venue like ISNA. And I think basically people who are raised, this is my opinion, people who are raised in a certain way of not talking to the opposite gender, they're not likely to make it to these venues that are matchmaking venues, because they're very conservative family. So they're generally quite comfortable talking with the opposite gender if they're going to make it to this venue, usually for the most part. Okay, good. So that's ISNA review. We were talking about venues. So this is not to put ISNA down, alhamdulillah, I guess they're trying, they could try harder. But what other venues exist? Yes.
Has events that are pretty good.
Half our Deen has events which are pretty good. How many people show up to those?
About 40 to 50, I would say.
40 to 50. Good. Okay.
And they have circle tables where everyone is allowed to communicate with each other, and they have icebreaker games and things like that.
Right.
I think those are effective, and also meetup.com.
Okay.
A lady, I don't know if she's here today, this Pakistani woman hooked up this group together. It's amazing, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. Okay.
Anyways, they do like hiking trips, board game events, and things like that.
Okay, very good. So there's some venues, but these venues are quite small. So in one locality, if half our Deen comes, we're looking at 40 to 50 people, which is, it's well organized like you're saying, but it's still quite small, right? So it's something that should be bigger, so we don't have that many people registering to come and attend these venues. Why do you think that is? Fear? Yeah, it's just uncomfortable. It's kind of weird. You're gonna, and then everyone's gonna like see you, and they're gonna be wondering like, what the heck? Oh, this person is doing that too. Yes.
If you keep going to this event,
Oh, the price adds up if you keep on going.
50, 100.
Right. Okay. So they can get expensive too. Yeah.
And after spending that amount of money, and you go to these events and they are not even well organized, you would not want to go the second time.
Right. So if it's not well organized, then you feel like you wasted your money and that's it. You're done, and you don't want to deal with it anymore. Okay. Very good. So we got lack of venues, okay? And we're going to talk about a solution to this problem. Okay, good. Anyone want to add something to this? Otherwise, we can start filling in the remarriage part. Yes.
I think older women in our community, so more older women in the community versus the eligible male population.
There are more older women?
There are fewer, I guess, yeah, older women, younger. Does that make sense? I don't know.
I'm not following.
The ratio.
The ratio, thank you.
Okay. The ratio of men.
Business school too.
All right. So the ratio of
Yes.
men to women.
Yes,
So there's a lot more younger men and a lot more older women
yeah.
in the Muslim community in general?
Single older women.
Single older women.
I'll clarify, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially at these like matchmaking.
Oh,
events.
at the matchmaking events particularly. Okay. That helps clarify a lot. Okay. Why do you think that is? Who has a theory on why they think that is? Why do older women show up to these venues and younger men and not the same age matched men? Yeah. Is it all the young men got married and all the women didn't get married, so they ended up getting older? Is that what happened?
If you're asking for a theory.
I'm asking for a theory. Yeah, it is, no.
So I think a lot of the older women either have not been married, have been married. and
They've
they're-
been married. Okay.
And then, a lot of the older men are actually getting married to women that are much younger than them. So,
Okay. So good. So older men are getting married to younger women, and a lot of the elder women have been married before, and they end up older. Sorry, older women have been married before, and that's why they're ending up at the thing. Okay.
Another theory that I wanted to add
Okay.
is career-oriented. A lot of females are career-oriented
Mm.
and men aren't.
Okay.
So they focus on making sure that their career is completed, they're doing their thing. When they come to get married, the men want females that are going to stay home, not necessarily have a career and not actually pursue whatever they're doing.
Okay, so women tend to be more career-oriented because of the independence thing, and then men are not as interested in them. Is it because men are not interested because they have a career, or because they don't want to give up their career? It could be both. Okay. What?
Both. And
Both.
Also, you mentioned the younger, they're not thinking about get married. They get,
Yeah, and the young people are not. Yes. Yeah.
the reason.
Right. That's the problem too. Yeah. So yeah. Well, we'll focus mostly on the people who are interested in getting married. So let's say the people who are interested in getting married, the women who are interested in getting married, they became career oriented, and is it that they did not want to get married because they were building their career, or they were ready to get married but nobody wanted to marry them? Which one is it? Who was
It's the second one.
the second one?
Yeah, I think a lot of females are ready to get married.
Okay.
But when they come to approach somebody that's like wanting to get married male-wise, they're gonna sit there and like, I don't wanna wait for you to finish your degree. Or I don't want you to finish your career.
Okay.
I want somebody that's ready now to have children,
Mm.
whatnot.
Okay. So they want to finish their degree. Okay, let's say their degree is finished, and that's definitely a very valid point. I see that a lot. What if their degree is finished and they've started their career, and they want to get married at the start of their career? And they say, I'm interested in getting married. When men come along, do men say no to them because they're working? Or do men say no to them because they would want to delay children? Or do men say no, or do they say no to the men because they say, I still need another 5 years to get to mid-career level, and then I'll consider marriage? All of the above. Which one is more? You're right, all of the above, because I see all of these things. All right? Yes.
could I add something a little?
But you have to answer this question first, before we lose it. Okay, all the women, mashallah, are talking. Brothers, you are part of this discussion as well. Alhamdulillah. And you need to talk, especially if you're one of the people who are trying to get married. All right? Eventually, you're going to have to learn to express that. All right. Amr, go ahead.
I was just going to add, your specific question or just add things?
No, my specific question first.
I have an answer.
Okay. Anyone have an answer to my question? Does anyone even remember my question? No, nobody. Do you remember my question? Yes, we got one. Alhamdulillah.
I think it's a combination of the women not wanting to settle.
Ah.
Settling.
Okay, so it's the women not wanting to settle down. So even if they're interested, is that what you're saying? Oh, settle.
Yeah, like for example, you have women who are just now starting in their career. They're not interested in marrying right now because they want to become that CEO. Or
But
whatever
we're
they imagine.
agreed. But we're talking specifically about the ones who want to marry. So they just started their career. The ones who want to marry, why are they not getting married? That's what we're trying to focus on.
Depends on what.
No, because of age, they're young. They just finished their degree. They just got a job. How old are they when they finish their bachelor's degree? 20, 21, master's 22, right? You just get a job. You're 22. You want to get married. 22 is considered to be a very reasonable age for marriage. Why aren't they getting married?
Because success and power is more attractive than a male in maturity.
Mm.
With women, youth and all the other stuff is not as important, I think.
Okay, so success and power is more attractive in a male than youth and beauty, which is more attractive in a female. Okay, so the females who want to get married, what's the issue then, based upon what you said?
That 21-year-old's not as attractive because he's not established, he doesn't have...
We're talking about the women, though.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the 21-year-old that you mentioned.
No, I'm talking about the 21-year-old woman who graduated with her degree, started her career, wants to get married, but for some reason she's not getting married. What's going on with her in the back, all the way in the back?
Okay, so there's a couple things that
Okay.
my president and I talked about.
Yes.
One, we find that guys can be a little bit intimidated by women who are intelligent and accomplished, and that seems to be a problem.
Mm. Okay.
But also, there are a lot of women who want to get married and a lot of guys who are available, but you have to ask them why they're not marrying the available girls. Why are they so like?
See, the problem is the men are not talking, though. So they have nothing to say. Come on, guys. Bismillah.
So if you went on any of those websites,
Yeah.
search 18 to 24, all the girls are going to higher education. And they're there for like 5 or 7 years, and they don't work. So it's very unattractive because the men have to work and provide and stuff. The guys is like, you know what, I'll just come back later when they're finished.
Do the guys assume that they will have to pay off the loans for these master's degrees and stuff as well? Okay.
Hey, when I marry you, I'm going to go to school.
Mhm.
So it's like, okay, who's going to pay for that?
Right. Okay. Okay. Good. You didn't hear what he said? Repeat what you said. Louder.
So like 18 to 24, all of them are...
So when you search online, 18 to 24, let's say guys are looking for 18 to 24, they put that in a search engine, they look at all the girls. What's going on with that? They're all in school.
For several years, like 5, 7 years.
And they're like on a long track for like the next 6 years, they're going to be in school.
And then when you ask for marriage, and they're going to say, if you can pay for school.
Or they have to wait for me to finish the whole thing. So when you ask and you're interested in them, they say, well, I need to finish my education first. So it's going to take it's going to take 3 years or 4 years, and maybe also in the back of the mind, the guy's thinking, oh, this is going to be a costly education, and it's going to be delayed. Either it's going to cost a lot, or it's going to be delayed. And then, of course, the issue happens is, let's say the guy is family-oriented, or he's child-oriented, and he's hoping to have a lot of children. So what's going to end up happening is, let's say a woman goes and she's in her PhD program, or she's in medical school. Right? She's in medical school, she needs 5 more years to finish. So the guy is interested now, and she says, but you have to wait 5 years. So what's going to happen is, we're going to get nikah done, we're going to get the marriage contract done, but I'm going to be in medical school for 5 years, and we're not going to be able to live together until I'm done. And then after I'm done, imagine what her life is going to be like. She's going to be extremely busy, and he's going to also be thinking, oh, this is going to, cost a lot of money in terms of the medical bill, school bills and all that stuff. And if I want to have kids, not only do I have to wait, but someone who put all this time and effort into education, is she supposed to just give it all up and become like a mother who's having one kid after another for like the next 10 years, and then she starts practicing afterwards again? That becomes a problem, because there's a battle between how do you balance between family and career, particularly when it comes to women. And this plays a major role And like someone mentioned, when it says women are career-oriented, that plays a major role in part of the dilemma. It's not that it's wrong to be career-oriented, but if you want to be career-oriented and you want to be very family-oriented, and if a guy is looking for someone who's very family-oriented, it's not easy to overlap these two things. Not everyone can play the role of, Marissa Mayer or something like that, the CEO of Yahoo, who is like pumping breast milk while she's managing like 50 meetings a day at Yahoo. She's like an exception to the rule, and people look at her like as a role model, and she's mashallah trying to do both and everything, but that's like very difficult for most people to handle. So that could be one of the reasons, and that plays a role. Okay, anyone else want to comment on this specific point? Yes. Another point. Okay, let's move. Anyone want to comment on this point? Yes. The point that I was talking about the career-oriented women in particular, and why does it become more challenging when they're career-oriented? Oh, not related to career-oriented. Okay, go ahead. That's fine.
I know many people won't agree with me, but I think the problem is also because how our parents in the past generations had arranged marriages.
Mm-hmm.
And alhamdulillah, a lot of them are successful. They learn to compromise. Nowadays, when parents leave it up to the kids and they talk to potential after potential, it just gets confusing from my own personal experience. And I feel like families should be more involved. And I mean, I'm not against arranged marriage. I mean, if it worked out for our parents and grandparents, then why not?
Okay, so no family involvement leads to being more picky, I guess you could say. Okay. Because when you have the family involvement is higher, they kind of, guide you towards one and kind of influence you or motivate you, or even sometimes pressure you towards one without necessarily forcing you, because that's a different category. Okay, very good. Omar.
I think technology drives this, where there's a lack of transparency and information. So, for example, one person may be talking to another person and saying, "Oh, this person's right." That person may be talking to two other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know whether you're number two or number one,
Mm-hmm.
and so you have this weird, lack of understanding where the other person is in the process versus the process.
I see what you're saying. So you're saying because of the technology.
There are almost too many choices with lack of transparency as to where each person is.
Too many choices with lack of transparency in terms of where they are. Let's go back to the time prior to technology. So you got a family, the family is going and meeting other people. Did it happen in the past where they would take one person, they go meet one family, and the next week they go meet another family, they meet another family? Wouldn't we have the same lack of transparency in the past as well?
I think so, but I think the technology enables the interaction to happen with less commitment.
Okay.
Commitment to go.
True. That's a good point. So less commitment due to technology, where at least in the past you'd have to like drive, make some effort, go and meet the family, eat the food that whatever.
Swiping right and left.
It's very different than swiping right and left. Very good. Okay, good point. Yeah.
So for the ladies, there's an easy way to fix that problem. When you're talking like one person, you want the other person, you should be on the same page. Like for example, if I talk to someone, I tell them I only talk to one person. As a woman, you could ask the guy the same thing. Well, hey, listen, if you want to talk, I'll talk to one person and one person only. Then you could actually filter that whole problem out. She made a very good point. I agree with you, actually. We share the same values on that. So if I talk to somebody, I'll literally, that's it. That's the only person I talk to. And I'll tell them that, and I'll tell them that's my expectation. So you don't have to sit there and fight for number 3 or 4 or 5. Because if the person's on the same page, they actually are thinking the same thing. It just reevaluates your own values. That person, because you at the end of the day, you want them to share that same value anyway.
Okay, okay, that's a good point.
If you ask the right questions, you can not waste a lot of time.
Okay,
That
okay.
person's worried.
Good. Okay. Don't worry about the crying child. He's perfectly fine. He's my son. He probably wants some coffee, and we're not giving him coffee today. So he's going to be fine, yes.
Aberdeen has this great feature where you can change your status from active to talking to someone. Do it at the same time.
Okay.
So if I'm talking to somebody, he says, okay, can we both change our status to talking to someone? If we both do, that means they're serious.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, so Hafardeen, you can change your status to I'm talking to someone. Very good. That's awesome. Cool.
Another issue.
As long as you're not emotionally involved, and that's when you switch the status, then you're good. Yes.
Another issue is there's a lot of racism.
Oh. Yes. So, where we put that? Under cultural. Yeah, it was cultural baggage somewhere, right? Force criteria. We could put racism here. Racism / culture. Cultural racist. Cultural discrimination. All right. All right. Good. That's definitely an issue. Yes.
There's 2 points, and both are related to family. So the sister here said, like, since when there's no family involvement, that could be a problem as well. But having family involved could, benefit the children or whatnot. But the majority, hopefully people can see that the majority of the parent generation, yes, they compromised and whatnot. And how much of dysfunction is in that relationship, and how much do children trust their parents who have lived, their lifetime with a dysfunctional relationship to choose a partner for themselves? One. And secondly, it's going to go back to, mothers raising their children, not wanting to get married or not having the right idea about marriage.
Because of broken families.
Or not.
Or even normal family. Yeah. So mothers who have a perfectly fine marriage will raise their children to not want to get married?
It's a possibility.
Oh, it's a possibility, yeah. Is it something that's common?
Yeah.
Why do you think it is?
I think the attachment
for mother to the children, not wanting to leave, especially if the mother gets older and she feels lonely, especially if she's from another country and she's stuck by herself, no other family surrounding her. She'll want to keep one of the kids with her.
Psychological baggage surrounds that as well.
Okay, psychological baggage. Yeah.
Very unrealistic expectations of the daughter-in-law coming in.
Okay.
Which leads to people not being able to get remarried.
So daughter-in-law, unrealistic expectations. Yeah, that's a good point. It comes into cultural issues again. All right, very good. Good points. Now, I want to come to this point here about pickiness. Is part of this problem is that people are being overly picky, or are the other ones really, is the issue more a supply of potentials, or is the issue more about pickiness of individuals, right? And this is something we really need to identify, because if the supply is the problem, then we cannot really fix this unless we can just somehow get people, more venues and more internet, and that'll increase the communication to get the supply seeming larger, and then we can resolve this issue. Is that the biggest part of the problem? Or is the biggest part of the problem is that the individuals are too picky? So even if we connect them more, they're still going to be too picky and they're going to reject. So if half our Deen venue goes from 40 to 400, they're still going to look at the 400 and be like, I would only be interested in like 2 or 3, and those 2 or 3 would not be back interested in me, so the whole event fails again. So let's look at this point. Who has some thoughts on this point?
I think it's not the supply. I think our society has moved to objectifying people much more, and I think so that's causing people to be more picky.
Okay. So society leads to objectifying. Let's plan that. Okay, so define that. What are they objectifying?
So I think there's a more increased sexualization of society.
Okay.
In the media, in movies, etc. So I think people have there's this feeling that everyone should be looking perfect like what you see on TV.
Right.
Or even beyond that, right? Where everyone should be the perfect, Prince Charming,
Right. Everyone needs to be perfect, like the models on the magazines who are photoshopped, and every single, let me ask you this, how many Hollywood movies are there actors and actresses in there that don't wear makeup? None. None, right? So if you watch those things on a regular basis, if you look at pictures on a regular basis, if you look at the advertisements on a regular basis, what ends up happening is you think that that's what reality is supposed to look like. But reality doesn't look like that, because reality does not get photoshopped, right? And reality does not get a ton of makeup put on. So what ends up happening now is people are expecting the 10 out of 10 and the perfect person, and the people that they meet, they don't look like that. And this is the biggest problem for guys. Okay, so for guys, I see this all the time. Guys are looking for, like, Mrs. Perfect, right? They're looking for what that actress or that supermodel looks like in the most pious sister, in a most pious package of a sister. So she's got to have that body and that hair and that everything else. But she should, hopefully she should be memorizing the Quran. Maybe she prays Qiyamul Layl. She prays at nighttime Ramadan. She's attending the masjid. So she's got all of that, right? That's what ends up becoming a standard. They're hoping, like, all I'm looking for is a really pious woman who looks like one of these supermodels, right? And that becomes a problem on one perspective, right? Because it's not realistic. One, it's not realistic to find because your standards are too high. And number two, it's not realistic because even if you found that person, you ain't up there, right? So you're not at that level, right? So she most likely would not have picked you. She's also looking for the 10 out of 10 guy, like as well, right? Not just in looks, in terms of everything. So that is problem number one. Problem number two, I'm going to be very honest with you, okay? I'm going to be very straightforward. Problem number two is that sisters who wear hijab, okay, and sisters who cover up more, they have a much lower chance of guys being impressed with their beauty because their beauty is being covered. And I'm not advocating not wearing hijab. I'm a big advocate of hijab and all of that, but that's just a reality that you have to deal with. So if you're covering up your beauty, which you should, according to Islamic principle, you should. But what's going to happen is when guys look at you, they're like, I can't tell, like, what is actually, I can't tell if, I'm telling you, I have guys telling me this for the last 10, 15 years. They're like, this sister, I think she's really, she looks really good. She has good character. Everything else is looking good. And I remember one guy came to me and he goes, but she wears such loose clothing, I can't tell if she's fit or not fit, and I just can't figure it out. So how am I supposed to figure it out? And that becomes a challenge, right? Now, of course, he shouldn't only be looking at that, but the guy, it's important for that guy, okay? It's important for that guy, for the sister to be on the same page in terms of importance of fitness. This is a guy who runs and he works out and he's in shape and everything. He was a good brother. He didn't live in this country. He's one of my friends from Belgium. And he had this problem. And he says, look, I like to work out and I like to be healthy and everything, but you can't ask the sister, how much do you weigh? You can't ask the sister, do you exercise? And you can't, he said, and the sister used to wear her hijab like lower like this. He's like, I can't see much. And he said, I'm just curious. I wonder what it would be like. So guys look for that by nature much more than women. Okay, this is the reality. Guys are more interested, or they're more motivated by the visual than women are. And this is just something that's proven. That's why men spend a lot more money to look at women than women would spend money to look at men in reality. You look at how many magazines sell and how many, strip clubs and all of that stuff, right, that exists. You don't find it vice versa, even in a much less patriarchal society, right? So there's a different aspect there. So that plays a role. Now the part of the problem, I'm not saying I'm identifying a problem. I'm not saying sisters, should take off their hijab or they're to blame. The men technically are to blame, but it's a reality. And you have to identify that reality and you say, okay, how can we work around that? So there's some workarounds, by the way. So Muslim Match is one of those websites that actually realized this. And what they did was they put in, when we talked about religiosity, they put in levels of religiosity. They said, what is your level of religiosity? And then they defined it. Who knows, who remembers what they were? I haven't been there in a long time, but I'm sure it's updated. Does anybody know? So they used to have, I'm thinking from like 10 years back or something, they used to have different categories of pray 5 times a day, Islam is the most important thing in my life, pray sometimes. That's religiosity. When it comes to being fit and exercise and all of that, they would say, what is your opinion and perspective on health, fitness and like exercise and things like that. And they have different levels that indicate in a very respectful way of saying, this is what, this is what what's important to me. And then what you do is you have all these things and you rate your levels of how important are these things for me in the person that I'm looking for, and that becomes public. So if someone sees that, oh, you're so interested in this, they're like, what kind of guy is this? Then you leave that guy, and that guy's out. Right? But what they did was, when they did statistics and they looked online, and this is Muslim and non-Muslim, dating and marriage websites both, what's the number one thing guys look for? Looks. What's the number one thing women look for? Muslim and non-Muslim, dating and marriage websites. Money. That's the reality. That's the reality of our society. And if we neglect that reality and we think, oh, it's bad, okay, you can say it's bad, you need to adjust it. Why are women caring about money so much? Why are guys caring about looks so much? That's what people look for. All right? And a lot of guys will admit that and say, yeah, that's very important to me. And a lot of women will admit that and say, that's important. You'll rephrase it. Instead of money, you say stability and, how mature they are. However you rephrase it, that's an important part of the equation. And the guys don't really care that much about how much money a woman makes. They don't care so much about the career success, because that's not considered to be a major asset for them. But for women, from their perspective, this is very important in their life, right? So we have some values that go a little bit change. Yes?
I just want to make a point about the hijab. I had one sister tell me that it's hard for her to get married because she's wearing hijab. I told her this is actually a blessing, because it's the same men who say, I can't find this if she's fit, or I can't do this, or because I can't see what her body's like, or they're actually doing you a favor by reading themselves out. And women just don't realize that. They're like, a lot of women, sisters, I prefer hijab. A lot of them are like, oh, well, it's really hard for me to get married. Did you ever see the other side of it? Is that...
I agree with you. I agree with you. If someone is so shallow and they're only looking for that... But let me throw something out there that's going to sound controversial, but it's the reality, okay? If someone is trying to get married and they understand the reality of this, that this is what guys look for and this is what girls look for, should guys who are really interested in marriage and they're finding a difficult thing, should they try to get their career more on track and get themselves a bit up there in order to help themselves get married? Yes. Women said yes. You don't want to hear the other side, probably. The other side is, should the women try to maybe make themselves up a little bit more, or do something that's considered to be more along with the fashion culture within society, in terms of the type of hijab that they're wearing, or the type of clothing that they're wearing, or even when they go to meet a prospective spouse, the type of makeup that they'll potentially, the minimum amount or acceptable amount of makeup that they're considering wearing. Should those things be taken into consideration? Yes. They should. Right? They should. So it works both ways. Right? And we have this dual problem, and the reality is, this was probably a very uncomfortable question that you got asked, right? Who felt discomfort in the way that I phrased that? Just be honest. Some of you did, right? Because people don't want us to talk like this. They say, well, why would you say that? People should accept me for who I am. You hear that phrase all the time. If the person is not going to accept me for who I am, then forget it, right? But are you willing to accept every single other person for who they are? No, you have criteria. You're looking for certain things. Right? And that's kind of what it comes into the whole pickiness and things like that. So, something to think about. Okay, we focus so much on this. Can we help the remarriage people for a moment? All right. Thoughts? Thoughts?
Yes, I think so people who get divorced, they're often, there's not a good community structure to support them.
So what support is needed? What community structure? Where's the support, Leslie?
So typically people have a social net when they're married.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Especially in smaller communities, or even our community. For example, if they know they'll be former husband and wife, right? So I know, for example.
So you lose some friends. If you don't lose friends, you lose You lose invites and potentials to hang around with because now the person is single and they knew you as a couple that was married and things like that.
You were part of a married social circle.
You were part of a married social, exactly. Yes, and you go back to a single social circle. That's definitely a problem. Now, how does that play into the problem of remarriage?
It's hard to get to know people, right?
Yes, okay. So it becomes difficult to get to know people. Good point, okay. Yes.
So not to be confused with the psychological baggage, but sometimes people don't want to marry someone who's divorced because of the baggage they bring along.
The divorced or the non-divorced one?
The non-divorced. Like if someone has never been married,
Uh-huh.
and someone who's divorced,
Mm-hmm.
you know, sometimes divorces are ugly or there's child custody.
Right.
So someone sometimes doesn't want to marry into that.
So meaning the baggage of the divorced person?
No. Well, no. I'm saying it's hard for the divorcee, that's the term, to get married to someone.
Oh, got it, I got it. Okay, so hard for them to marry somebody else.
School is even shorter.
Got it.
Smaller than
Okay.
the percent.
Okay.
A lot of people who have never been married don't want to marry someone who's divorced.
On the flip side,
Okay. So I got the point, but so then the issues are on the side of the divorcee, correct? I thought you were saying the opposite direction.
The opposite, I'm saying the person, it's hard for them to find.
Okay, I see. Okay, so you're saying the baggage is that they don't want to marry the divorcee because of the issues. Okay, I got it. Okay, yeah, just different way of phrasing it. Okay, so pool goes down because okay, why don't people want to? Because of the
Because their
The-
parents taught them that there's something wrong with a woman if she's been divorced.
no, not just that. No, well, she's talking specifically about issues of children, like child custody, and what else? You mentioned something else.
I mean, divorces end badly.
Uh,
Sometimes, I mean, you don't know what their ex.
Okay. Ex relationship. Yeah. Okay. What else? Yes.
I think sometimes divorced people are pickier.
Ah.
Experiences, they get pickier.
Yes. Okay. They're pickier. And maybe they're pickier because they have experience. Or they're pickier because they had the bad experience, right? So it could be either one. It could be they're pickier because they're smarter, or they're pickier because they had bad experience. Okay, good. What else? They really know what they want. Yes.
Stigmas.
Stigma. Okay, explain that.
As attached, for example, well, not marrying someone who's already been married, or not even, before even getting to know someone, just saying, oh, since they're divorced, there's going to be friends.
Right. So when people are searching on one of these websites, or they're going to one of these venues, and there's, let's say on the internet, and they're going through their search, and there's a filter of someone who's been married before, someone who's been divorced, someone who's not been divorced, how many people are likely to check off the filter that says, no, don't give me the listings from people who've been divorced? Very high, right? Very high. Question is why? Why? Okay, so let me give you some background. Among the time of the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, they're considered to be the best generation of Muslims collectively. Okay? Was divorce, how common was divorce among them?
as is remarriage.
It's quite common. It's not like super high, but it's quite common, right? But remarriage was extremely high. Very quick and very high. So when we talk about the problem of divorce in our society, the problem is not necessarily the divorce rate. The real problem is two things. Number one, why people are getting divorced. The reasons were different at that time. So the reasons why people are getting divorced over things that one premarital counseling could have identified that they shouldn't have gotten married in the first place. I performed marriage for people, and they've been divorced in 3 days. 3 days. See, people 1 week, some people 3 weeks, right? That's why we became very strict in how we perform marriages. We don't perform, none of the major masjids in Orange County, Southern California, none of the imams will perform marriage unless you've gotten at least one premarital counseling session, unless you've actually registered your marriage, and some of these are unregistered marriages and all that stuff. And we recommend a minimum of 5 counseling sessions with a professional premarital counselor before we even will perform the marriage. Right? And why do we become so strict? Because we saw 3-day divorces. And the 3-day or the 7-day divorce or something like that, it happened because we could have sat down with them and asked them just 5 questions and figured out that, you know what, this marriage is not going to work out. You guys have some major incompatibilities. This doesn't make sense. But that's the problem. So that's the biggest problem with the divorce rate is so high for dumb reasons. Right? Some people get divorced for legitimate reasons, right? So that wasn't the issue in the past when it came time to the companions, and the people used to get divorced. Christianity is another issue because they're not allowed to get divorced, until King Henry VIII came and made his own church because he wanted to divorce his wife and all that stuff. But when it comes to the companions, they used to get divorced, but over more legitimate reasons. But they used to get remarried. So the problem is reasons why you get quickly divorced, or reasons why you get divorced, which are not you should have seen before, or they're ridiculous reasons. And number 2, remarriage becomes the challenge, right? So question now is, why is there a cultural stigma behind remarriage? Just be very frank and open. And I know it's there's no kids in here, right? So I hope my kids are not in here. Okay, good. Yeah, so just be open, because I might get a little bit graphic if you want to give an honest answer, but it's okay. We need to understand this phenomenon. Yes?
So I'm being a divorced person, I think that it's what's kind of mentioned before. Maybe I was the one who caused the problem. So the person who is looking at me for marriage, they'll say, oh, she was the mistake. Or he was the mistake. So it's like putting a fault on someone, and they don't want their marriage to end up, the remarriage to end up.
So they assume that the divorce will happen again. Yes. Okay. So that's assume divorce again. And that's a good point, and that's a problem. One of the other problems with that is, what is the divorce rate for people who have been divorced?
65, I think I read.
Yeah. Is it higher or lower than people who get married for the first time? Much higher. So it's much, much higher, and that's when we can talk about that some other day. But the divorce rate is higher, so the concern is not just a cultural thing, it's actually, it has some aspect of reality there, and we can discuss why that is and all that stuff, but that is a thing that, is played. Yes?
Issue of just difference in life stages. So
Okay.
When you go through marriage, you actually change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're at a different life stage.
Different life stages, yes.
And then if you add a kid on that, a child on that, it's even more pronounced, right?
Right.
If you marry someone with a child, they think like a parent.
Mm-hmm.
If you marry someone who doesn't have a child, it's kind of like, that's been married before, it's very, very different.
Right. So those who are looking for someone who is very similar to them in their initial wanting to get married, in terms of religiosity, in terms of socioeconomic status, there's also the aspect of maybe someone is interested in marrying someone who's on a similar life stage as them. And if they've had kids, they're interested in someone who has like a parent mentality because they have kids and they want the other person to share that, but then the other person's never had kids before, so it becomes a potential issue. So that lowers the pool again, and that can become another challenge. Yes.
So I don't know if this is, but I want to put up this out there.
Yeah.
The sisters, I wonder if the taboo of marrying a sister through divorce is considered used goods.
No, that's a very good point. So, for women,
I mean, it could be the same for the guys, but I'm just saying that's the stigma that I
right, so there's the stigma that women who've been divorced are considered used goods, From a men's perspective, they're less likely to be interested in a woman because of that. Is this a reality? Everyone agrees. Most people are saying yes, it's a reality. Should it be a reality? Okay, so there's a difference. Should it be a reality, and is it a reality? Now here's the question. Is it a reality among the younger generation? Because mostly, we're talking about cultural stigma. Is this an American stigma as well? Or is it a foreign cultural stigma? The same level? Not nearly at the same level, right? So, yeah.
I mean, I think even the whole concept of how you relate to people after divorce, they're very cultural issues. So I think in American culture, it's normal, for example, for, if both parents, when they're divorced, they're still very active in the child's life, right? And you see that, right? Whereas culturally, it's a different perception. Oh my gosh, if someone's divorced, you can never see this person again, and they need to be across the country or something like that.
That's true. So in which culture?
I can speak from Desi culture.
Okay. So when I say culture here, I'm trying to, alienate some of you, okay? But we're trying to focus more on the American Muslim culture, which is kind of this hybrid of the American culture and the other, your family's culture, which is coming, from where it's coming from, an Arab country or Desi or from Latino or whatever it may be, the other culture, right? So it's this mix between. So yes. So is it the same issue, same stigma as it used to be? No, it's not. Is it still there? To an extent, it is there, right? What about women? Do they have a problem with men? Let's not use the word used goods, but men having, I don't know, given their heart to somebody else, or whatever term you want to use, and that bothers you. Is that? I hear yes. Is there anyone who do you hear that? Or people are like, he loved somebody else before me or something. Is that an issue or it's not an issue? It's not an issue. Okay. Yes.
I'm going to say that it's not an issue initially, but I have seen that it's become an issue afterwards, because then, unfortunately, with women and jealousy, we start comparing ourselves.
Comparisons, absolutely. That becomes a major issue, and I've seen many, many cases like that, where people start comparing, and if one statement even comes out that first wife wasn't like this, you're done. You just joined the 80% statistic, and you got a problem, right? And people will say things when they get emotional and stuff comes out, right? Yes, good. What else? Remarriage. Why is it so difficult to get remarried? Yes.
Sometimes a couple previously didn't have any children, got a divorce, they're going to assume that there's a problem with one of their spouses, like they're not able to have children.
Okay. So assumption of infertility? Yes. We're going to be done at 6, and we'll be praying at 6. So we'll be done before 6, and then we'll pray. Okay. So good. We're good so far. Now let's flip this board and talk about solutions. How do we solve this problem? So we've identified the issues. How do we solve this problem? You're always waiting for the solution, but you forgot that this event is called Coffee and Conversation, which means I don't need to tell you my solution first, and then I'll give you my perspective afterwards. Conversation. This is what was requested of me, to start this program. Yes?
Shaykh Mustafa would say that we have a few masajid that tried kind of their own independent efforts to find some sort of matchmaking or whatever, but why don't we have as a community, like maybe under Shura Council or something, these masajid could come together and kind of not have 50 or people here, 50 people there, that kind of just like very small chance of finding someone compatible, but
okay. Solutions. Okay. Unite individual efforts of networking, right? Okay. Good. So let me tell you about some of these programs, okay? So I used to run one of these programs in one of the masjids that I was at. And what I found is I had a lot of people in my database. It was well managed. There was a lot of detailed information. People would give me their quote-unquote bio data, as they say. They give me their profile. I would make sure, I said, you have to send a picture, otherwise I'm not, dealing with it. There should be some picture there. There should be a description of what you're looking for, all of that stuff, right? And I'll be very honest with you, the number one challenge, what do you think that I found was the number one challenge? Old pictures. From the frog. No, that was not the number one issue. It was pickiness. And what would happen is, people can want whatever they want, but they would dismiss each other for the most ridiculous reason. Like for the smallest tiny thing. So I would have guys dismissing girls because all sorts of things, from I'm looking for someone who's a little bit older, I'm looking for someone who's a little bit younger, or she didn't really have a big smile in the picture, so the smile didn't happen. And these are supposed to be very religious people, okay? And then I have women dismissing a bunch of guys for the same thing. The guy, he looks like he has a very serious face. He's not smiling. He didn't have the biggest smile in his picture, okay? So, decent looking guy, he said, no, his smile wasn't very nice in the picture. Just looking at him, I've actually seen people say, they just look at a picture of a guy, he looks like he would be a wife beater when he grows up. Like, just by looking at the picture, the guy's a wife beater. you just saw and he's a perfectly really nice guy, shy, everything, but no. He looks like he's one of those guys who would, do something like that. People make very quick judgments. And then you have, his major is not going to work. It's not. My parents wouldn't accept that, and I don't know if he's going to have a good career. He has a bachelor's in English. What's he going to make with that? Where is he going to live his career and all of that stuff? So I've seen all sorts of things, and then I've seen things that people just have ridiculous standards. So one person, she says, I want to marry a hafiz of the Quran. I've decided. I want to marry someone who's memorized the entire Quran. I said, okay. Did you memorize the entire Quran? No. Did you memorize any portion of the Quran? Did you memorize Juz Amma? No. So why do you want to marry someone who's memorized the entire Quran? Is that going to somehow make them a better husband? No, but I just think that's going to provide the blessing and the barakah in life or something like that. That's immaturity. I'm sorry to say that's immaturity, because that means that you don't understand what aspects are actually going to help you select a spouse that's actually going to, be a good husband. And I've seen vice versa, the same thing. Okay, so very these are some of the problems. So uniting individual efforts of networking. We always throw Shura Council up there. It's like the go-to organization for anything that should be large scale. But there's resources, right? These all require a lot of resources. Malik, do you have like an extra 20 hours per week that you can spare?
I wish.
Yeah. So probably not. So someone's got to do that. Yes, that's the problem. Solution number 2. Okay. The people who are involved in networking need to be what kind of people? They need to be wise. Pious too is good, but most important, they need to be wise, but not just wise. There's something more important. What is one aspect of wisdom? What generation are we trying to cater to? They need to be relevant, right? They be relevant to the people, meaning they need to identify the right thing. So what ends up happening is, with all due respect to the aunties and the uncles who are doing the matchmaking, they don't understand very well the generation that's trying to get married. And when they don't understand the generation and they don't understand what their wants are and what their needs are and how to relate to them, how to talk to them, what ends up happening is they will skip over a lot of people who are in the database that could have potentially been matched. And this is what happened in one of the local masjids. I'm not going to mention which one, but they had a very large database, but they put an auntie who was not really in tune with what young people are kind of looking for and what they need and how to talk to them and how to reach out to them and all that stuff. And there was very few matches made because of the fact that, she was not the right person for that position. Alhamdulillah, she tried her best, but you need the right people who understand, and then therefore that program was shut down. So if you don't have the right people, so this is, I'm not trying to promote any service here, but this is what I like about some of the new services here. So you got the traditional auntie, uncle, whatever, doing the matchmaking. But who's heard of Beyond Chai? Only 3 people, 4 people, okay? So there's a service called Beyond Chai. I have not evaluated it, and I'm not getting commission or something, but I think the model's interesting. What's interesting is they realized, they said, look, we've seen all these other websites where you search around and you go through profile pictures and all that stuff, but we need something for Muslims where we got that auntie, uncle type of person who's what we call the matchmaker of the community, but we need someone really young, in tune, socially connected, not to just cultural groups, socially connected to the general American Muslim population, and someone who's going to go and search on websites, someone who's going to go and travel around the country and basically try and get people in their system and then do the research and match them up. So the concept is great. I don't know how well it's working, but it's a great idea. And the idea is because a lot of people you need a national network. And you need someone who's very social, and you need someone who's going to actually filter out all of the other things for you, so you don't have to be searching for it. And then they have this option of, the wealthy career person, career woman or career man or whatever. It's a really expensive service, and they do the whole custom thing for you. They will call and they'll do initial interviews for you, and they'll do this, and they'll just present to you the end result. Here, we did all the interviews and everything. Here's what you were looking for based upon our interviews with you. Here's 3 potential people, now you can meet them. So you have this major filtering process. Very expensive, very time consuming, right? But that's what a lot of people are looking for. Now imagine you have a service like that, assuming you can afford it, assuming it works. That is something that can actually work if you have the right person in charge. Okay? What other solution can we have?
Can I add something to that real quick?
Yes.
I'm not suggesting that we should apply the same model of these national the websites or whatever. I'm saying we have a community here in Southern
Local,
California.
yeah.
Let's facilitate people getting together, not going to some random event here hoping, we might find someone there or whatever, but
Right.
facilitating people meeting in person who have the same goal.
What about the local events? Right? Why are they so unattended? Why is the attendance so low in the local events? So how many local events would you say there are for these venues that come for Half Our Deen and things like that in Southern California or in the greater Los Angeles area?
Less than 100 probably.
No, per year. Events. Less than 100 was way less. There's 2 or 3 per year, right? 2 or 3 of these per year, okay? And how many people come to these events generally? One second. How many people come to these events? About 50 to 100. So if you were to combine all of them together, you get 150 people. Is that sufficient?
It's not reaching that, there's probably I don't think it's, outrageous estimate to say there's 10,000 people in Southern California, Muslims, 20 to 40, say for example,
right,
who are seriously looking to get married.
Right.
So how are we only getting 1% of this or, 1/10%?
Right. So marketing is a really big thing, right?
Yeah, if we have each individual masjid,
Right.
Advertising this service, people are going to come to them.
Okay. So marketing needs to go up. All right. And that's one of the big challenges of doing anything in the Muslim community, is that you hear people say all the time, you had that event? I never heard about it. You heard that before? Why didn't I hear about it? How are you supposed to get the information to the person who said they didn't hear about it? If they're not on a mailing list, if they're not, they didn't hear the announcement somewhere, after Friday or something like that, how are you supposed to reach out to them? There's no like Muslim database that you can somehow reach out to all of these people. It's a challenge. Sah? It's a challenge that all Muslim organizations face. And the thing is, you don't want all the marketing from every single person who has an organization. You want to unsubscribe from all of that stuff. So this marketing is a big challenge when it comes to specifically talking to the Muslim community. Yes.
So like to add to that,
Yeah.
I think what he's referring to is more consistency. So if you have like 3 events that cost like $100 each, and then you go and you have like a bad experience, you're not likely to go again, Or if you do go again, it's probably like 2-3 years later. But if there's consistency, like some sort of, you can even name it like a network professional group or a singles professional group, and you can just meet up monthly or meet up weekly or some sort of consistency. Because if you think about it, online it's virtual, whereas if you, like a non-Muslim world, you work with a colleague and you see like his or her attributes, you become less picky. You don't look for, oh, he's not tall enough, or oh, he doesn't have this. You just you get to know the character, and over time you find your potential match.
So what would they do in an event like this? So you have like what did you say, a business type meetup?
It could be a business.
A professionals.
Social, single professional.
Okay, and what are they going to do exactly in that event?
It could be like
Every month. So let's say you're going every single month. What do they do every month?
it could be some sort of activity in different locations.
And only singles are allowed. So if you're married, you're not allowed in this event. Okay. So you do some kind of activity. This is all for the purpose of marriage. It's not for the purpose of professional networking.
I mean, I'm saying we
Yeah.
can name it as professional, just to kind of like.
Got it. But the real intention is for the purpose of marriage. Okay, I get it. So it's not a separate event.
And it doesn't have to cost like $100.
And reduce the cost.
Yeah, like all these single events are like $100, $50, and you go and it's like for 2-3 hours. You're not gonna get to know a person in 2-3 hours.
Okay. How much do you think it costs to organize the event?
It doesn't have to be in a venue.
No, I'm saying the ones that do it, I'm just asking, how much do you think it costs to organize those events? You think it costs $6,000 to organize the event? Yeah, professional one. Let's say half our deen. With the technology, the marketing, how much it costs? Agreed. So let's take the professional one, the nice one. What would it cost? You organize events. How much? 5,000?
Yeah, if you want to go really nice.
Okay.
For a decent price.
Okay. So if it's $100 and they get 50 people, how much are they making? 0. Right? So the thing is, yes, events that are not very well organized, they shouldn't cost much. But the thing is that, but events that are well organized, this is something I really want people to understand. Events that are really well organized, they cost a lot to organize. And if you're getting something good in terms of service and quality and all of that, sometimes it can be worth it. Because we talked about this for the last 2 sessions, about the ideal masjid. And when we talked about what the ideal masjid would look like, everyone put their figures that this is what the masjid should have. And they said, how much should it cost? How much is the budget? Some people are like, oh, the budget would be like $50,000, $100,000. What they listed was $1 million budget, right? But there's a disconnect between understanding how much all of this actually costs to actually get in reality. So that becomes the challenge, okay?
It doesn't have to be like a fancy event. It doesn't have to be in a hotel. It could be like, I know Irvine once where they had like a network kind of professional. It wasn't for singles, but it was just like professional. And it was like at a restaurant. They had bowling. They had, I don't know what else they had, but like, it doesn't have to be in a fancy place.
Doesn't have to be fancy and super organized and okay.
It could be organized,
Right.
but it could be like, I'm sure there's a way to make it.
There's ways to make it cheaper. So try to make it cheaper.
More consistent. So you can
Okay,
have
and more consistent. Okay, good. Okay. Okay, what else? How much time do we have? Very little time. Let's start wrapping up. Yes.
I just want to follow up with what she said. Like, she's trying to say, like, if you get like a Facebook event or like a group or something, and you hold a dinner,
Okay, so people said that they felt uncomfortable during some of these events. Do you feel more comfortable during a social type of event, and why?
I think, well, it depends. So if you're in the majority demographic, if there is one, you feel more comfortable at them, right? If you're 40 and you show up at an event and everyone is 20,
Right.
it's really weird.
Right.
And so I think maybe it's for people as you get outside of the whatever the biggest demographic, it gets tougher.
Right.
Those events don't work.
Right, that's a really good point. So the thing is, we need focused demographics on events, right? Because both in terms of age and culture. Because otherwise, like you said, the 40-year-old girl, 40-year-old guy who comes from a completely different culture shows up to an entire Malaysian event, right? And then they're like, they're like Latino background, and they're like, okay, maybe that's a potential, but I was kind of looking for a different type of person. That's not going to work. Okay, so we focus demographics, which is going to unfortunately reduce the number of people again. All right, but what else? Solution.
I'm really like anti-event.
You're anti-event, okay.
Because first you have to wait like 6 or 10 months for the event. Then I got to drive all the way down to Orange County, which is like a 2-hour drive. And then the tickets start at 65 and go higher. And the thing is that events are mostly like older people there, so you might not find someone. And even if you do, there's no connection. Whereas now you can just download an app, which is free. It'll take 1 minute to download, and you can fill out the info, and within 5 minutes you can have an app to start talking to somebody. So that makes more sense. But as far as the big events, I'd rather just have like a singles halakha at my local mosque, and just invite people single there, and just have a discussion, and then after when I talk, I think we've had a better actually there than having an event.
Singles halaqah, okay. That would be interesting. Why do you think this would have, it sounds shady. There would actually be some lesson here, right? So well, this is interesting. So you're saying there was singles halaqah, an Islamic educational program, would be much better than a social bowling type program. Well, explain why.
Okay, because in bowling, you're going to focus on bowling. You're not, you might not talk to people. In the singles halakha, like how the halakha is run, 45 minutes, at least you learn something. You learn about maybe something pre-marriage related. And then after that, the attendees can just talk about the event, and it's not as, the other thing about the events, like not marriage events, but like young professionals. Like young professionals, half of the people who show up are already married. And they come with their spouses. For like a hiking event, you're more focused on hiking and jumping across the mountains, rather than like talking and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, so hiking, especially if it's like a tough hike, you probably won't have any breath left, to be talking in the first place. Okay, app. Okay, who prefers apps? Who says go with the apps? Go with the online. No one's into the online thing. You're into online. No. There's nobody who thinks that this is the way forward. This is the way forward compared to these effective tool.
It's just a tool.
Okay. How many of you have heard of? How many matches have you heard from anyone that you know from your friends that got married through one of these meetup things? How many?
I know one.
One. Two. That's it. 3. You know 3 people? Okay, so you know 3 and 2 and 1. How many of you know people who actually got married through the app or online? A lot more. A lot more. Okay? Huh? Are they still married? Yeah. I'll tell you, I know a ton of people internationally, okay, who have gotten married and they have very successful marriages, and they actually married even out of the country. I know friends in England married in Germany. I know people in Belgium married in another country. They moved to the other country, and their marriages are perfectly fine. And they would never have been able, they could not meet people outside of that. So especially, think about this, city people, we're city people, right? People who live in villages, it's extremely difficult for them These internet services are absolutely needed for them. May not be ideal. You have to know how to navigate. So some education about what to look for, and especially how to use these things in the right way, and not how to get abused by these services. Right? That's very, very important. So this is one thing I'm not seeing here, is education. One of the biggest things that is lacking is education. Education in terms of what to look for, how to look for it, right? And then how to go about the process and how to utilize all these services. And that's really important, yeah.
So, and I don't know, I walked in a little late, so I'm not sure if it was addressed, but when, not maybe what you were referring to with regards to education, but just more of like people doing their own personal development and knowing themselves, knowing what they bring to the table as well. Because a lot of times we're just confused, and it's sort of like, I think I want this, I'm not sure, and so that's a huge part.
But yeah, we talked about that a little bit, but yeah, we added to a solution here. Personal development. Okay, personally, I believe that this is the number one, and I personally believe this number one, I believe this is number two. This is my personal thing. The only reason why, and you could disagree, the reason why is because when the pool shrinks down from 99% to 1%, like we talked about, you need to widen that pool. So we can widen the pool if we can somehow get all of this organized. But widening the pool through technology is something that really works for a lot of people, and it helps people to kind of find what they're looking for. This is ideal. This is way better. This is like our Islamic university here. If you want to really learn well, you want to connect with the teacher, you want to benefit from tarbiyah and all that, you should come in person to classes. But if you don't have the ability to do that, you do online classes. And that's what works for a lot of people. A lot of people cannot make it. Even ones who live locally, they can't make it because it takes them an hour in traffic to get here. So some people can do it, some people can't. Okay? What else? So we can fix this too. All right? What else is needed to fix this problem? Yes.
I think our peers should be reminded to look out for each other. So not relying on the elderly generation. I think we should look out for each other. It's a little bit difficult when you're single and trying to recommend someone for another single friend. So it's looked as like a hand-me-down or something. But if it's done tactfully, it works. And I've had like one success story just in the process of getting to know someone. I'm like, wow, maybe not a good match for me, but my friend who's sitting on the other side of the country, like they would get along so well.
Absolutely. No,
it takes time though. It takes time and effort and being cognizant like yourself.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. Peer culture it really helps a lot if your friends are looking out for you and all that. One of the things that is going to prevent this though, what is preventing, sometimes people they're too busy, they don't think about it. What's one reason why someone may think, you know what, I should recommend this, but then they don't recommend it? Not just, competition is one, but not just competition. They're afraid that what? It's going to blow up in their face, and they're going to be blamed that you're the one who introduced me and you just lost a friend. And this is something that happens, unfortunately. Because people, again, and that all comes back down to personal development. Right? People need to understand, if you recommend someone, you do the investigate. I'm just saying, hey, here's a potential. They look okay. Your job to go and investigate and look. People need to get to the level of personal development that if their marriage breaks, they take responsibility that it's not your fault just because you introduced me to someone. Right? So that has to do with the maturity and personal development. Good. Who has not spoken in a while? Brothers have not spoken almost at all, basically. You've spoken as well in a while. You've spoken. Any new hand? Yeah, there we go.
I think people who are married, they can do a really good job of introducing her friends to his friends. I actually read an article, and it said that some of the most successful marriages are when a woman's husband introduces his best friend to one of his wife's friends.
Interesting. Okay.
And
I've
That's good.
actually seen that because in my own aunt had her secretary, and she told her husband, she said, I have a secretary who's a great person. And he goes, you know what, my best friend's been single for a while, let's introduce them to each other. They did, and they got married, until they have children. So
Beautiful. Alhamdulillah. Okay, this is going to be the last two questions. 1 and 2.
Well, I just wanted to follow. I was actually.
Or last two comments, yeah.
I was going to say exactly that, so I'm glad she.
Alhamdulillah. Excellent.
But I was also going to say.
Upvote.
A lot of married couples that once they get married, they just drop the single friends.
Dropping the single friends. That is a problem. Yes, indeed. Omar Laska. Oh, you have not spoken. 1 and then, okay, you yield. Go ahead.
About apps. What is the good about it? What is good about it?
What is the pros and cons of internet and apps? Okay, so pros and cons of internet and apps. Okay, so the pros of this is the pool gets widened. Your selection becomes much wider, and you can actually there's more transparency initially in the beginning, that in terms of what you're kind of looking for, you can see kind of the background. So if you have a really good service where they're talking about, for example, let's say religiosity is very important for you, or height is very important for you. You happen to be a very tall person, or you're a very short person, and it's very, very important for you to marry someone who's in the right height category that you're looking for, right? That becomes more challenging. You need a wider pool, and you could do a search on actual potential heights that you're looking for in many of these services. So that gives you quick filtering, and because of the amount of transparency that's there in the initial stages. So those are the good things about the internet and online. The bad things about this is, 1, too much emphasis on the picture, right? So just judging and looking primarily for the picture. That's a problem with the guys. They're going to focus number 1 on the picture and the whole swiping, thing. And then the second problem is going to be the means of communication is not in person. So when you have communication with someone across the internet, if it's just chatting, you lose. There's communication theory shows that when you're speaking to a person, right, and all of a sudden you speak to them on the phone now, you hear them, but you don't see them visually, you've lost a very large % of actual communication that exists between you. When you change from the phone to chatting, you have neither their voice, no tone, right, except emojis or whatever. There's no tone, doesn't count, right? And then you don't have their physically looking at them at the same time. Your level of communication drops significantly. So what ends up happening is either there's misleading communication, which you misperceive the person, or you start making judgments about what the other person said, and it's a lot easier to get into problems and difficulties. So that becomes a problem. And the other thing is, it's usually not done in a public thing, so it becomes more private. And when it becomes more private, Islamically, it becomes a problem, and also people start to become emotionally attached. I would say potentially a lot faster as well, because they have something in their mind, and they're projecting that, like I talked about the princess and the frog. They become emotionally attached much quicker. And then when they actually meet the people, they're like, that's not what was in my mind. So these are the dangers. And then the visa dangers I talked about. Visa is a major problem. And people just impersonating and talking about things that they're really not, that also can become a problem. So these are the dangers. So there's pros and cons. Okay, let's conclude this by looking at some action items. What is actually needed? Okay, this is not about who's going to do it. The question is who's going to do it. Okay, who's going to unite all the individual efforts in Southern California to make a massive networking program for people who are single? Where does the responsibility lie? Shaykh Mustafa, thank you. Thank you. I'll just add it to my list of to-do things, Where does the responsibility lie? The masjid that has the list?
Who is managing that database after that auntie?
The auntie, nobody. Just sits there. It's done. Shut down. You're ready to do it? Come see me. So inshallah, I have more than one masjid that has a database and it's not being managed well. You see me, inshallah. So the thing is, someone needs to step up and put themselves forward and say, okay, I'm ready to put some time into this. If you can get If you can make this monetary and you can market it somehow and people are willing to pay for it, great. If not, it's going to end up being a volunteer effort which becomes on and off. So it needs to be consistent. Okay? So that's that. Who's going to set up the consistent monthly meetings? Shaykh Mustafa again, mashallah, alhamdulillah. After I write the research paper on this and the last 3 things and the other things. Yeah. Oh, I was going to sign you up right now. Alhamdulillah.
I'm willing to help with any of that.
Alhamdulillah.
What I was going to say though is that, is it possible to do along with this sort of like a monthly newsletter that also addresses some of those things like personal development, instead of doing a single talaqah, but if some of the imams can say, okay, we're having this issue, people have come to us, and you put on there your advice so that it reaches like, 1,000 people, so that you are also helping people kind of address some of these issues that we talked about there. And at the same time, that will help develop that database because people will sign on to the newsletter. So the community is both benefiting from your advice, saying, okay, we had 100 people with this issue. And so this is our advice, and you have like a group of imams who can give advice to the people that you see these are issues that our community is dealing with right here in Southern California.
That's a fantastic idea.
And
Yeah.
once a month you have this newsletter, okay, this is an issue that women are facing. This is the advice from this imam or these imams. This is what our advice is. And so then you have people who are subscribing to this newsletter. They're both benefiting from the advice, and they might be able to see themselves having this problem. And they can send in questions, and they can send in, we're having this issue. So you're helping the community, and you're creating this database so that people can also, inshallah, help.
That's a fantastic idea. So to have a newsletter, have imams, maybe some counselors also involved in the process, talk about what they've seen, talk about potential solutions, and send it out on a regular basis, and it'll help with the personal development. So I'll tell you, so it's a great idea, and I think it's potentially doable. The challenges that we're going to face is imams are so overwhelmed that they don't have time to do any of this. So if someone could extract the information out of them in the interview format and then write it out as well, and then make the newsletter and then market it, then it's something that's actually feasible and doable. All right, good. What else? What was I saying? I was saying something else. Okay, good. So that's part of the personal development. That's part of the education. Whoever starts this up has to eventually start doing the focus demographics. Same thing, education about how to use the internet. Peer culture, we could just address it within the community, talk to your friends and family. Personal development. What other action item do we have that we can potentially do? Yeah.
Is it possible for you, for example, to go through these apps and filter what's good and what's not, so that way when we're using it, we actually have something that guided us through the process?
So like 30 to 40 hour project of filtering apps. I'll put it on the to-do list. Project 743, inshallah. Yeah.
Top 2, top 3, something that
So, okay, I agree. Somebody should do that, all right? But it's not likely going to be someone who's extremely busy. So somebody should do it. Someone who's qualified should do it. But it's not going to happen with someone who's quite busy, unfortunately. That's what ends up happening a lot of the time. It's always put on the person that's busy. And it's funny because when I was leaving Shura Council, Dr. Siddiqui, I told him, I said, you know what, Dr. Siddiqui, I can't do this. I'm just too busy. He said, no, that's what happens. Work should be given to the people who are busy because they're busy for a reason. And I said, that's very convincing. But it's still a no. I just can't do it. Alhamdulillah. He's kind of right in that sense. But more people, I guess, need to become busy so we can give them some more work, inshallah. Yeah.
Just keep continuing this conversation.
Keep the conversation going. Okay, alhamdulillah. We'll keep the conversation going potentially. So someone else can organize another conversation, and I'll attend it, inshallah. Yes.
Going off of what Sonia just said, it's to continue this. This is what happens in the community. We start these dialogues, and it's great for our first time. We talk about it, here's the issue, here's the pros, here's the cons, but that's it. It's a done deal. It
Yeah.
doesn't continue.
Yeah.
So you have the space. You're a great asset to the community. You have a cafe that I love, and you know that. So I think it's great that you hosted it here. It's great, but I think it needs to go into the cafe. This needs to go into a quarterly kind of a system, a program that needs to happen, and have everybody come together, face each other, sit around the table, and have these conversations. They're not just you know, let's just pinpoint it, forget about it, let's see who's gonna have it the next time, and be done with it.
Very good.
So I think here-
You're ready to organize it?
You know, my hands are full.
See, this is the who's ready to organize this and has organizing experience? Huh? Huh? No, I need full support. All right? So here's what it comes down to. Great idea, a monthly gathering, cafe is open for you. Who's going to organize it? Who's going to promote it? Who's going to record? Who's going to set up the sound system? Who's going to bring the food? And who's going to send the video out? Currently, I'll just be honest with you, that's all me. I set up the camera, I set up the microphone, I set up this, I set up everything else. So that doesn't work, right? That model doesn't work, and that's why we can't do other projects. So
Volunteer to be a team. We can get a team.
we can get a team, but I'm just going to tell you, the team has to be dedicated, consistent, and they have to learn the skills. They have to be willing to learn the skills. So yeah, you have to learn how to operate a video camera. If you want to do that, you have to learn how to operate a sound system. It's not that difficult, but you have to do it. It's not that complicated, right? Yeah, well, I'm a computer science major. All right.
Next night, we can just have a meeting, a group develop here tonight, and then I can say I will volunteer for that group.
Excellent. So who's going to write the names down?
I can write the name.
Okay, so you see Sister Sonia, write your name down if you're interested in that. We get a group started. Don't put me on that email initially. Get your group ready, and then once you're ready and organized, I'm ready to give you the venue, ready to give my feedback, and whatever else is required, inshallah. Okay? Alhamdulillah. So, is it really hot? Sorry, is it the topic or is it just the heat? No, just kidding. Alhamdulillah, we'll turn up the AC more right now. So, alhamdulillah, this is, who would like to see another conversation like this? Okay, inshallah. So we will organize more things like this on this topic, and we have more coffee and conversations coming up. What would you like the next topic to be? I said we've covered why some Muslims leave Islam. We've covered what the perfect masjid would look like and what would it take to build that. We've covered, what is this called again? Why is it so difficult for Muslims to get married / remarried? What's the next topic? And then we're done. Next topic? Practical steps to solve this problem. Okay, so you want round 2. Okay.
I know that elections are like a political thing. It's like to guys what to vote for, not to vote for.
What to vote for? Okay. Okay. California vote. Yeah. What else?
How about with what's going on social media, how to raise your kids?
Bill, are you writing these down? Yeah, write these down, please. Sorry.
I was saying.
Social media?
With social media, how to raise your kids in a good Islamic environment.
How to raise your kids in a good Islamic environment. Keep in mind, it's a conversation, so it's not a lecture. Oh, you want a conversation on that? Okay. Okay. How to deal with Islamophobia? Okay. Addictions? Okay. What else? Mental health. A discussion on mental health? Okay. Discussion on mental health. Anyone else? Topics? See, what this venue was supposed to be designed for, like topics that we normally are not gonna get discussed inside of like a normal masjid. So that was kind of the impetus behind it. Like, you don't want to advertise on the entire masjid mailing list, why are Muslims leaving Islam? Right? Why do some of them leave Islam, and then you kind of market the entire thing. Actually, well, we did do that anyways, but not the point. It's supposed to be a little bit more unique topics. Yes.
Why is it so difficult to get anything done in the Muslim community, deal with mosques and organizations?
Okay. We kind of addressed that in the ideal masjid quite a bit. But yeah, why so difficult to get things done in the Muslim community dealing with masjids?
Why doesn't the immigrant community resonate with the African-American community?
Oh, why doesn't the immigrant community resonate with the African-American community? Okay. Yeah.
The roles of husband and wife.
The rules of husband and wife. It's a good one. What else? Oh.
Maturity, can you define? I mean, personal development and maturity.
Okay, personal development and maturity. Good, yeah.
Okay, so how about have something like this, but people bring their parents who are very close-minded and, seriously, and
How to open closed-minded parents.
so
Yeah.
you can talk about like racism, the stigma of divorce and all of that, so you can open up their minds.
That's not a bad idea. So this would be basically the time where the Muslims pressured their parents to come to the masjid, and rather than vice versa. That would be a very unique program. Inshallah, it sounds good. Okay, you got it. You're writing it all down, right? Yeah, we got our guy in the back writing it down. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Good. Actually, no, so he organized the food, so I didn't do everything here, just so you know. Alhamdulillah. Mass is involved here. Shura Council is also here. They're a part of the co-sponsor of this event. Tayyib. Okay, alhamdulillah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help each and every single person who wants to get married and who should get married, to be married, to have a successful marriage. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help all those people who are having challenges after being divorced to easily deal with those challenges and to remarry when they're ready for that remarriage. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen our families. We ask Allah to purify our hearts, to make us more mature physically, spiritually, and mentally. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us and guide us at all times. Ameen. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nastaghfirukallah wa natubu ilayk. Jazakumullah khairan for coming. We will make wudu and we'll pray in just a few minutes, inshallah. So stick around. Alhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khairan.